It's a difficult day. It's difficult to imagine that we no longer have Nelson Mandela with us. And he will not be there any longer. Because we've depended on him for over many decades. For his views, for his advice, for his guidance, for his support, for his friendship. That he is gone does mean a great loss. In a sense, it means we have to depend a bit more on ourselves. But I think in terms of depending on ourselves, we have the fortune, the advantage, that we can always recall what he did, what he stood for, the values that he sustained, to help us as we continue to do what we must do, to say, what would he have said? What would he have done? Are we living up to the example that he set? We must also bear in mind that he had a family, an immediate family, other than the bigger family. And so one would then understand the pain and the loss that they would feel at the departure of, to them, a husband, a father, a grandfather, and all of that. But I think in the end, we'd all accept, we'd all of us accepted that this is an old man, and sooner or later, age will catch up with him, and that sooner or later he will go. But even though we understood that, nevertheless, when he does go, that becomes a painful moment. When last night they told me that he had passed away, it wasn't entirely a surprise. But still, because it's difficult to imagine a Mandela that's not alive. Still, when they told me last night that is what had happened, it again came as a bit of a shock. I've known Nelson Mandela personally since I was about 19 years old, when I came to Johannesburg. Even when, just before he came out of jail in 1990, I resumed that direct contact with him. We were in Lusaka. I used to speak to him by phone when the regime allowed that to happen. So I'd speak to him by phone, discuss all sorts of things. So the relationship was more than political. So it was quite easy to work together, which is, I think, why, in reality, during the 5 years that he was president of the Republic, he largely left government work to us. I think it's because he knew who we were, he knew our capabilities, our weaknesses, and all of that, and thought that he should give himself time to address his larger challenges. What is it that we do in order to unite the people of South Africa behind a common vision? What is it that we do to achieve national reconciliation? That he would have to attend to those things, while the rest of us attended to the daily things. So I think that we shouldn't look for any particular thing that Nelson Mandela might have done while he was president, because the particular thing that he contributed was his vision, his perspective, the things that appear in our constitution. South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, which appears in our constitution, comes from that generation. And the striving in which we've been involved to create a non-racial South Africa, a democratic South Africa, non-sexist and all that, is something that they handed down to us. That's why they went to jail. It was to realize that vision. And I think that also imposes an obligation on all of us as South Africans to say what is it that we do to make sure that vision informs what South Africa actually becomes. And I think if we did that, really examined ourselves, examined what we do, what we are doing, one of the things we would conclude is that we are really far from realizing that dream, the vision which the Mandela generation held. So we have to do more. I think we would also find that there are certain things that we're doing, some of our behavior is not consistent with the values which that generation sustained. I think we would find that. I think we have to do that. The sad occasion of the departure of Madiba must also be a moment of this self-examination, a critical self-examination, so that we do indeed answer to ourselves as honestly as we can the question whether we are truly living up to what he and the others stood for. And so we must really examine our policies, our programs, and so on, style of work, everything, to say what is it that we do with regard to all of these things. And I think that's a common responsibility, which it's a burden that falls on the shoulders of all South Africans. And I think the fear that something horrible is going to happen because Madiba is no longer there, I think it's wrong. One can understand it. One can understand it. But I think that we shouldn't entertain a fear of that kind. But in the end, I mean, we've lost a great son of our people, a great representative of his generation. And I think really the best we should do, as I was saying earlier, is to say, what is it that we do to honor his memory, and therefore to ensure that the vision that he stood for informs what South Africa becomes.